Dear friends, we gather this afternoon to remember and to celebrate the life of one who filled our world with her goodness, her love, her courage, her extraordinary spirit and outstanding example. In humility and gratitude, we turn to the wisdom of our tradition for comfort, for guidance, and for understanding. Throughout the centuries, whenever our people felt lost, confused, adrift, they would say the words of Psalm 121, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and of earth. Esainai el Eharim me'ayin Yavo Ezri Esainai el Eharim me'ayin Yavo Ezri Ezri Me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim Ba'aretz Ezri Me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim Ba'aretz Esainai el Eharim me'ayin Yavo Ezri Esainai el Eharim me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted. Behold the upright. They shall have peace. For those of you for whom the 23rd Psalm is familiar, I invite you to join with me in its recitation. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai, who may abide in your house? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless, but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may. Do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. when I die, remember me with a smile and laughter. If thoughts of me provoke no love, only sadness and tears, I ask that I be soon forgotten. Give what's left of me away to children and old ones who wait to die. And if you must cry, cry for your brother or sister who walks in grief beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. You can love me most by letting love live within the circle of your arms, embracing the frightened ones. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. My dear Roger, dear family, friends, in the entire Torah, the 5 books of Moses, there is only one individual who is identified as an artist. His name is Bezalel. We read in the book of Exodus, God spoke to Moses, "See, I have singled out by name Bezalel. I have endowed him with a divine spirit of wisdom, ability, and knowledge in every kind of craft, to make designs for metals, to cut stones for setting, and to carve wood, to work in every kind of craft." Bezalel wasn't just an artist. He was also a teacher. After describing his expertise in the crafts and his artistry, the Torah says, "Ulehorot natan belibo." God gave his heart the ability to teach. The Torah further describes Bezalel as possessing chokhmat lev, wisdom of the heart, the ability to understand his students. The ability to understand his students' hearts and minds was Bezalel's gift. It allowed his artistry to endure, not just in the Mishkan that he designed and built, the temporary sanctuary the Israelites carried with them in their wanderings, with its furnishings, sacred objects, and the vestments that were worn by the priests. It endured and was passed on by his students, his apprentices, and proteges, those whose lives he touched with wisdom and understanding. As I thought about Anita Seid, whose artistry was also in every kind of material and craft, as I thought about her very long life with its many blessings, but with devastating tragedy, as I thought about all of the people who knew her and loved her, how she was able to connect with so many by virtue of her understanding and compassion, her wisdom of the heart, I kept thinking of Bezalel, whose artistry and humanity shaped his life and his legacy, whose heart wisdom continues to teach us and to guide us. As the middle of Jake and Bertha Noble's 3 children, between older sister Bee and younger brother Jerry, Anita's heart wisdom was evident early on, as the family moved from Sandusky to Columbus to Akron, as Jake worked his territory for the family's shoe business, and Anita adjusted to a new community, school, and new friends with every move. She seems to have done it all. I'm sorry, it's just hard to see her. She seems to have done it all with ease. She did well in school and was always well liked wherever the family landed. There was something about Anita that was compelling, that drew people to her, that was essentially engaging, likable, even charismatic, but not in a flamboyant way. Anita had a presence about her, a calm, tasteful, solid presence. presence. We could always count on her for her full attention, her listening ear, her compassionate nature, her kind words of support and encouragement. While we might not have identified it as such, Anita was blessed with wisdom of the heart, and everyone who knew her felt that special quality, that depth, that patience, the teacher's ability to understand the heart and mind of another. She was accepting, judicious, discreet. She was honest and caring, a safe haven, a calm harbor. We cannot know for sure what in her background and family gave her the grounding, the self-possession that allowed her to function in this world with an independent spirit, with confidence and a sense of self-determination, and simultaneously to be attuned to others, attentive to their concerns, their worries, their longings. Even with the family moves, Anita enjoyed a stable, supportive, and relatively privileged childhood and family life. Both of her parents were born in this country, the children of Eastern European immigrants, and Anita knew her extended family of aunts, uncles, and cousins. She attended Bexley High School and then spent a year at Kent State University. She was on the swim and diving teams and the dance team. She was physically active her whole life. She enjoyed horseback riding. She didn't play golf. That was Bernie's chosen sport. But she greatly enjoyed playing tennis, at least into her 80s, if not beyond. When she wintered in Arizona, she lived at the racket club in Scottsdale, where she could play daily. Most of all, she was passionate about the arts and doing art, as she was endowed with wisdom, ability, and knowledge in every kind of craft, and she did work in every kind of medium. She painted, she knitted, she worked with watercolors and charcoal, she sewed and crocheted, she designed and created clothing and silverware, she did ceramics, she threw pottery, she made jewelry, often with the intricate and colorful beading, and she created other objets d'art, which she invariably gave away to family members and loved ones. When Bernie and Anita were invited to a party, a dinner, a special occasion, Anita most often arrived bearing a gift from her hands and heart. She brought her artistic sensibility to everything she did, her home, her table, and especially her garden. She loved that garden on Belgrave Road and spent hours upon hours cultivating every beautiful flower that grew there. She grafted and cut back the roses. There were always roses in her garden. She had flower bulbs that she dug up every year, stored indoors for the winter, and planted again in the spring. She loved flowers and flower arranging, and won awards for her artistry. She was president of her garden club and belonged to more than one. When it was time to leave her home in Pepper Pike, Sarah had to practically pry her out of there, in large measure, because she didn't want to leave her garden. She loved the theater, concerts, shows, and movies, art museums, and art exhibits. She had the great gift of knowing her grandchildren as Roger and Paula raised their family, Sarah and John, Melissa and Scott, and to be a part of their lives. I have to imagine that in the aftermath of the tragic loss of Joyce, Sarah, Melissa, and Scott must have been balm to her soul. She adored her grandchildren, and they loved her, looked up to her, and turned to her for her wise heart and understanding soul. She was always entirely present for her grandchildren, to listen, to soothe, to comfort, and to teach through the power of her goodness, kindness, compassion, and generosity. She had a wonderful sense of humor that her grandchildren could access easily. As Sarah relates, when she had to go to court for a traffic violation, I joked that I would come to see her in jail and she would look good in stripes. I could also remind her that she was starting to get old, basically after she turned 90. Before the concept of old entered her consciousness, she had the supreme joy of welcoming her great-grandchildren into the world and her wise heart as Jade and Cole joined Taylor and Jesse and the Blankenship family, and as Maya and then Olivia joined their ranks. It was a treat for Anita to witness their activities as she had their parents a generation earlier. She enjoyed reading and playing cards, especially Maj almost to the end. She was a longtime member of our congregation, was on the board of the Kaufman Container Company World Headquarters, and served on the board of the PVA. She never attended the Cleveland Institute of Art as a student because she studied extensively with Dorothy Harkins, who exposed her to every kind of craft. She loved her lessons and her classes, and when she had the opportunity, especially at Wiggins, she loved to teach others and did so with great joy and expertise. Her heart had the ability to teach after all, and she did so with wisdom, knowledge, and ability. Her wise heart also had the ability to love, deeply, truly, passionately, permanently. It seems that Anita Noble from Akron was fixed up by a mutual friend with Bernard Seid from Cleveland. They were married on July 15, 1943. They accommodated Bernie's service in the Panama Canal and then set out to create a life together, briefly in Elyria, then Akron, and then finally in Cleveland, as Bernie went into business for himself with the Kaufman Container Company. They had the great joy of welcoming Roger into their lives and eagerly anticipated the birth of their second child 4 years later. It is hard to imagine not only the shock of giving birth to a child with Down syndrome, but the practice of the time to put her immediately into a home for developmentally handicapped children. It seems cruel from our vantage point, but Anita and Bernie somehow sustained this living loss of Patty and made the difficult decision to have a third child 2 years later in the joy of Joyce. Roger and Joyce enjoyed a childhood of many advantages, as Bernie did well, and they enjoyed vacations in Florida, a cottage in Port Clinton, where they all enjoyed boating and fishing and close friends. Anita encouraged her children's interests and activities. Joyce, in particular, seemed to be very much in her mother's mold as she pursued her artistic interests at the Cleveland Institute of Art. She was ambitious, courageous, and independent. At Roger's suggestion, she majored in photography rather than sculpture. In pursuit of her goals, she moved to New York for a year, but secured a position at the ABC affiliate in Cleveland. She was the first woman action camera. When she moved inside, her photography and her programming won a local Emmy Award. She was on her way up at the station when the unthinkable happened. 5 days before her wedding, she was killed in a car accident. She was 32 years old. When I asked Roger how Anita managed Joyce's death, he replied, "She was the rock. She sustained us all. We leaned on her, and she was the rock of the family." Her wise heart continued to beat with kindness, with compassion, with generosity, and enormous strength. That wise heart that broke as Patty eventually went into an institution and as Joyce died. Bernie took it very hard. They eventually returned to their life-affirming activities, but it was never the same. They traveled to Europe and Israel and the Far East. They had enjoyed a weekend in Havana when Bernie was in the service and cruised the Great Lakes for their honeymoon. They enjoyed the beach in Florida even when the kids were grown. Their many friends and family on both sides. One of the sages of our tradition taught that there is nothing so whole as a broken heart. Anita's must have broken again when her beloved Bernie passed away almost 30 years ago. I suspect there is also nothing so wise as a broken heart. She did not give up, and she did not give in. She kept moving, creating, doing, connecting, listening, giving, and enjoying this life and the richness of its offerings. She was quite amazing until her fall at Severance Hall. She was attending a concert when her decline inevitably began. She hadn't wanted to move to Wiggins, but once she was there, she found new friends, taught classes in art, and must have appreciated seeing one of her paintings from high school hanging on a public wall. Sarah describes how Anita, anticipating the end, was clear-headed and wise-hearted. She wanted to make sure everything and everyone was taken care of. Her last days in hospice, we called some of her friends and family to say goodbye. We went through all of her necklaces and determined which ones she wanted to give to her friends and family. She wanted to make sure everyone felt important to her and have something of hers to give to them. I also had to send her favorite friend's poem to all of her lady friends. She loved art, crafts, flowers, gardening, and the arts. Her last trip out was to Severance Hall for a concert. She loved to go see my daughter's ballet. She loved to watch plays, movies, symphonies. She kept so active and busy until her fall on January 31st. She loved her family very much, but in the end was ready to see the family and friends she lost along her life. That was the last thing I told her just before she passed. We will all miss and love you, but we will be okay. It is time for you to say hello to Papa, Joyce, and Patty for us. They have been waiting for you. More than once in the last weeks before she died, when Paula and Roger visited, she had visions of tall people all dressed up who were in the room with them. She reported their presence with some awe, but not with fear and not with discomfort. Roger wonders if these were her waiting loved ones, those who preceded her, whom she must have missed beyond describing. I like to think these were God's ministering angels, preparing to take this wise-hearted teacher of our people, this artist skilled in every craft, but especially the craft of being healing. I like to think they were preparing to take her home. Zichrona livracha. May her memory rest as a blessing upon each of us. And let us say, Amen. We have already learned that in the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. And we believe that so long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. I invite you to rise. If you're uncomfortable, you don't have to stay up. Israel, male rachamim, shochen mamromi, ametzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim utehorim kizorakia mazirim et nishmat hayikara shelanu shalcha leolama Val harachamim yastira beseta kanafav leolamim vitra v'chayim et nishmata Adonai unachalata v'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Anita and Seid, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed, Anita Seid. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come, that no human eye has seen nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it. Still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. O God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to us to your keeping, as we repeat now the words hallowed by generations of our people in the Kaddish praise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabban v'amad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael v'galav v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shemei Rabba mevarach la'olam u'l'olmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach yitpa'ar v'tromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei v'kudisha v'yichu le'ela mikol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'oma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'mamah u'ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. It is part of the tradition of our people to actually help to bury our departed with our very own hands. And for those of you for whom it might have meaning, I invite you now to place in this time of COVID probably a handful of dirt on the grave. If you want to use the shovel, that is at your discretion. You may do so now. Friends, we conclude with these words from our tradition. Lech Kishilachach Adonai. Go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai yiyeh imach. Go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, kavod Adonai ya'askecha. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. And we say to the family, Hamakom yilachem etchem b'tov sha'ar evelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Amen.
Concludes our service. On behalf of the family, thank you for coming.
A little bag.